Hey Molly, it's Mr. Molo. I'm going to go through some of these questions that you missed on your review. Hopefully with my explanation you'll understand them. Some of them are pretty tricky with how they're asking them. So on number 4, it says consider the function represented by the equation x minus y equals 3. And then what is the equation written as function notation where x is the independent variable? So that means basically it's trying to get you to make it say y equals. So to make this say y equals, couple ways I can do it. First, I would subtract x from each side. So then I get negative y equals negative x plus 3. And then I would divide both sides by that negative 1 because I don't want negative y equals, I want positive y equals. So now that negative x changed to a positive x, and that positive 3 changes to a negative 3. So pretty much y equals x minus 3. Okay, 9, kind of tricky. These brackets, I'm finding a lot of people think they're just parentheses. They're not. So the brackets really mean it's a range. So like this means anywhere from negative 4 to 2.5. So like negative 3.9, negative 3.8, negative 3.7, so on and so on. Same thing here. Negative 1.9, negative 1.8, 1.1, 1.2, 2.6, 2.7. So there really means a range. So we have to look at the graph and see where the minimum is, so the lowest point on the graph, and see where it's between these numbers. This one's kind of tricky because the lowest point on the graph is right here, and it's between 0 and negative 1, but that's not an option here. So I'm going to go look at the second lowest point of the graph, which is right here at negative 4, and that one does have an option here. It's somewhere between 2.5 and 4. So it looks like it's at about 3, maybe like 2.9. So the second lowest point on the graph is right there at that 3, negative 4, and it's right there, 2.5 and 4. So it's actually 3, not 2.9. 10 was the trickiest one, I think. So analyze it for when f of x is less than 0 over negative infinity to negative 3. What's the other interval? So this one, so you're trying to figure out when it's going to be less than 0. And actually this one is exactly 0, so it should have a line underneath it, and it is exactly 0 at this negative 1.1 mark here. So that one's kind of tricky. It should really have a line underneath there to say that it's equal to 0 as well. Here, kind of the same thing as that other one, so we're looking for the minimum, so that means we're looking for the lowest point of the graph, and the lowest point of the graph looks like it's here at negative 15, and it looks like it has 2 spots. It's actually at negative 2, negative 15, and positive 2 and negative 15. And our option is right there, positive 2 and negative 15. So remember, minimum lowest point of the graph there. Here we're looking for the domain. Remember, domain are all your possible x's. And this one's kind of tricky because this side has a dot, which if you remember, a dot means that's where the graph pretty much starts. And this side has an arrow. And if you remember, arrows, they go on forever when we're talking about graphing. So this graph will never get to like negative 1 because there's a dot there. So that means it starts right there for the x point. This graph would get to 9 because there's an arrow. So even though there's no 9 on the graph, the arrow means it's going to keep going on and on and on. So the lowest point of this graph is 0, and the highest point of this graph is going to be infinity. It's just going to keep on going. So we're only talking about the domain, so we're only talking about the x's. So the x's have to be bigger than 0, and that's pretty much the only requirement. It has to be bigger than 0. Since it's an arrow there at the end, it could go on forever and ever. Hopefully that helps.